welcome to another episode of Mine Planning Matters, a podcast where we talk about where the industry gets it both right and wrong when it comes to mine planning and mining engineering. This podcast is not just for mine planners, it's for everyone who has anything to do with mine plans, from those who create them, to those who execute them, and all the way up to those who endorse or sign off on them. My name is Mark Bowater, Director and Founder of Australian mining consultancy Insignia Mining, and I speak from experience, having been involved in mine planning for over 30 years. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mine Planning Matters. And this episode, I'm going to talk about what I generically refer to as risk-adjusted decisions, or maybe incorporating risk in our decisions. And I do like a good story, and I'm going to use a story to provide an example of what I'm talking about. When I was away on holidays last year in Canada, there basically was a TV channel there that I watched a bit of that was almost 24 hours a day, continuous, of a game show that's called Deal or No Deal. And I need to explain Deal or No Deal for those who haven't seen it. So what happens is there's one contestant, and there's 26 briefcases that are secret and have an amount of a value of what that briefcase is worth. And those values vary between 1 cent and $200,000. And the contestant chooses one of the 26 briefcases, and that's their briefcase, that were they to go all the way through to the end of the game, they would get the value of whatever is in that briefcase. And so then they take turns in selecting briefcases from the 25 that are left that get exposed, and then that's crossed off the potential dollars that they might win. And what I saw so many times, because it is interesting to watch these sorts of shows from the point of view of human behaviour, and I do find them fascinating. It was fascinating to watch the number of times that contestants would get down to something like about 5 or 6 briefcases left. So, for example, it might be 5 briefcases left. There's their briefcase, and then there's the 4 that are still available to open. And 1 out of the 5 briefcases had a large amount in it, like $100,000 or the $200,000 or $75,000. And then the other 4 briefcases that were left, that were still, secret, would be very small amounts, like $5 or $10. And what happens is that there's a banker who is always, after every time a briefcase is opened, the banker is making an offer to try and buy the contestant's briefcase from them and for them to leave the game. So for them to walk away with that offer instead of continuing to open all the way to the end and see what's in their briefcase. And so, that example where there's, say, 5 briefcases, 1 large one of, let's say, the 100,000, and then 4 small ones, the banker might make an offer that was somewhere around about $20,000. Something like in that ballpark. And so that's an opportunity for that contestant to walk away with $20,000, or they can ignore that offer and they can play on. And it was really intriguing to watch the mentality of the contestants, in that they were like, there's a chance I've got $100,000 in my briefcase. There's a 1 in 5 chance I have $100,000 in my briefcase. I'm not taking your $20,000. I'm going to play on. And their logic would be a little bit along the lines of, well, I've only got to open 1 more briefcase, and then I'll get another offer, and if everything goes right, there'll be a higher offer. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try and get that higher offer. And their thinking would be that really, yes, I need to keep the 100,000 in play, and there's only a 1 in 5 chance that when I pick the next briefcase that it has the 100,000 in it, because if they were to pick the next briefcase and it had the 100,000, then the 4 briefcases that were left would only be between $10 and less. And so suddenly the banker's offer would disappear from $20,000 down to about $2 or $3, something like that. And so they're sort of thinking, there's a low chance that I'm actually going to pick the 100,000 because I don't want to pick that briefcase. There's a 1 in 5 chance I'm going to pick that briefcase. So I'm going to play on. I'm going to take the risk. But what they didn't think about, you could generically watch them and see that they didn't think about was what was the level of downside risk? What were the consequences of that, downside risk? Yes, there's only a 1 in 5 chance they're going to pick the $100,000 suitcase. But what were the consequences of choosing that $100,000 suitcase? In that example, they've basically gone from an offer to walk away with 20 grand to an offer of $5. So a huge downside, huge consequences. And they really never thought that, and they just kept going because they thought the odds were in their favour without actually thinking about the level of downside risk. And, I don't see that, that badly in the mining industry, but I certainly do see the human behaviour where we're thinking upside and we're not necessarily thinking about the downside risk and the level of consequences if something doesn't go to plan. Because the thing is, things are never going to go to plan. As far as the contestant is concerned, they're not going to pick the $100,000 case because that's only a very low probability. And in our case, in the mine industry and mine planning, it's a low probability that a certain event is going to happen. But what we don't necessarily factor in is what would be the consequences if that event did happen. Thanks for listening to Mine Planning Matters and my thoughts on mine planning. This podcast is for the benefit of the mining industry, and that's you. So I'd love to hear from you through the comments section, and please feel free to let me know any topics you'd like discussed in future episodes. You'll find much more content at our Insignia Mining website, and if you find any of our content valuable, please let your mining colleagues know so they can benefit as well.